Good morning, everyone. It's the end of the year at RIT, and this is capstone presentation time for the visual media program. All of the students here are graduating this year from the program. There are a few students who will be here for one more semester, but who are also presenting with us today, and you're going to get a great idea about the program and the kinds of things that we're interested in and students are doing. I will be introducing each speaker, but what I'd like to do is say a few thanks here to Trish Pickelhaupt, and Tanner Newman, who have helped to create this this stream to YouTube and troubleshot all of the issues that attend to trying to do something like this live. And what we're going to do today is we're going to hear the presentations. We will not be taking questions or comments until the end of the entire show, but I will be moderating, and we will be watching the chat in case there's something that comes up that we can attend to. But I'd also like to say that I'm very pleased with this class, and I think what you're going to see here is a group of people who've worked together for the past year, have helped each other, have supported each other, have given great advice to each other and great criticism to each other. And that's one of the hallmarks of the visual media program, is this teamwork. We learn to work with other people to accomplish things that are larger than ourselves. And I think the class is the product. Ultimately, this is the product of the visual media program. So without saying anything else here, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who is Alyssa Ambeau, and Alyssa is going to be talking about a study in tarot. So Alyssa, take it away.
All right, hi, good morning, guys. Let me just share my screen real quick. And then I'll just present this way. All right, so like Frank said, my project was a study in tarot. So tarot is essentially a form of fortune telling and intuition based. There's no really set definitions for anything in the cards. You can buy books and check out books and look up resources, and each website will tell you different things, but when it boils down to like the basic science of it, they're images and symbols on cards that define differently based on the situation that you're presenting to the cards. So basically, for example, Fool can mean like new beginnings, or it could also mean childlike behavior. So stuff like that. So it's really just based on how you perceive the images. There's actually a common phrase used in tarot, which is apply, or keep what applies, leave what doesn't, which basically is what it sounds like. If you're doing a reading and some cards might not fit the situation you're asking about, you could just leave the message, because messages could like intersect, and some things just might not fit, and that's okay. So I basically just wanted the ability to challenge myself as a designer. I've always been into tarot, and I've been studying it seriously for about a few months now. And creating my own deck really helped me not only connect with the cards and what they mean, but they also helped me create a personalized, or start a personalized set of cards that will only apply to me, or will only apply to some situations that relate to me. So here is the packaging once the tarot cards, all 78 cards are done. This is what the box will probably look like. once the cards are done. It's super simple, not too crazy. I just wanted something direct and minimal in order to fit the style of the cards. So here they are. Here's the first 12. The major arcana in general represents change or in a major event or situation that will soon unfold for you. The arcana itself have secret messages or hidden messages about a situation. A common symbol I decided to include in my major arcana is a symbol of an eye. I really wanted the viewer to be able to have something to connect to during their readings and have something to draw them into the imagery to really pull out the deepest and most accurate readings for the person or whoever is getting the reading done. By having a common symbol or motif in the cards, it could represent the self, and it could be easier for beginners to listen to their intuition and have something to jump off of. So so I'll go through and like say what each card is because they're not labeled. So top row from left to right, we have the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, the Lover's card, the Chariot, Strength, the Hermit, Wheel of Fortune, and Judgment. And these are the final 10, so the other half of the 22. The major arcana can also look into someone's personality traits. So sometimes the major cards also represent a person and a figure that could help you, or could represent a change for yourself that needs to be done personality-wise, like something that is holding you back from accomplishing what you really need to do. So you'll notice that these cards are all super minimal and vague. I really just wanted something simple so that whoever is pulling these cards could just based off their intuition, so that they could just trust their gut and go with the flow with the messages that are coming to them and not focus too hard on the direct definitions of these cards. So for the final 10, I have Death, Temperance, the Devil, the Tower, the Star, the Moon, the Sun, Justice, and the World, which is the final card. So a really big summer goal of mine is to finish the 78 cards and to hopefully have a full produced tarot deck that can be used or sold or donated in some way. So yeah, on that note, I'm gonna hand it back to Frank. That was my presentation. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you, Alyssa. I noticed that the cards are, they're all black and white, which is a goal that you had to make something that was unusual, and also easy to reproduce.
Yeah. I just really wanted, like, because a lot of the tarot cards that I was studying were really descriptive and detailed and super hyper realistic, and I was like, whoa, that's maybe for a beginner that might be a little bit too much. So I just really wanted a deck that was simple to the point. Here's the message. What does it speak to you? What applies to you? And all that.
So I'll look forward to someday you can. I've never had my fortune told, so maybe someday you can come and try to impress me with your ability to see the future.
Absolutely. Love to
All right.
do it.
Thank you very much. Our next presentation is really an important one for the experience that we've all been through here, and particularly people who are deaf and hard of hearing, who have been struggling with the impediments to their understanding of what people are saying while their faces are covered. And so we're going to hear from Miko Arayata and he is going to show us a trailer for a film that he's made as a kind of educational film, informational film that will help hearing people understand what the challenges of the COVID era, this period we're going through for people who cannot hear. So Miko, I'll hand it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Frank. Again, my name is Miko, and I'll be giving a brief description of my project with a PowerPoint, and then I'll be showing the film's trailer. Can everyone see this? Everyone seeing this? This is my capstone project, the final capstone, and it is called COVID-19 and Barriers for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Community. So this is just a brief description of my project, and this is a documentary that will explain how the deaf and hard of hearing community have experienced challenges during COVID-19, communication barriers. So I want to show and share the experiences that deaf and hard of hearing people will be giving in their own words about those barriers. And the audience that's seeing the documentary will be seeing the deaf and hard of hearing community. So really, I'm talking about what this means for the audience. This will help everyone to understand the frustrations that deaf and hard of hearing people have been experiencing. Some people that I interviewed said that they did experience barriers. Others said that there were fewer barriers. And I will be showing about a 2-minute trailer related to my film. I do have the full documentary completed. And at the end of my presentation, when everything is finished, if there is time left at the end of our presentations today, I might show the full documentary if time allows. And I will also provide the link for you to watch it on YouTube if you're interested in seeing the full video. So right now, would you mind showing the trailer clip?
Yep, I'm gonna pull it up.
Okay, great, yeah. Go ahead and please do that.
Tell me your experiences, how you face the challenges interacting with deaf and hard of hearing individuals while you have masks on.
In my experience, it's been difficult understanding what someone is saying while wearing a mask because it covers up their facial expressions and you're not able to capture that full picture. I struggle understanding. In the beginning, it was hard. I wanted to make sure I didn't misunderstand somebody. It was difficult to identify their emotions, such as if they were happy or sad. A lot of expression and grammatical information is conveyed through the nose and then the lips, so of course, when that's covered, it's hard to get a clear understanding. Usually, when I would speak with hearing people, I would speak verbally and they would respond, but it was hard to understand, not being able to read their lips. It's essentially impossible to read lips while with masks on because they're not transparent. This has impacted the deafblind community because we communicate often through touch. I would suggest hearing people to be more open-minded and patient with us. If you approach someone who's deaf, instead of leaving or being in a rush to avoid them, I would suggest being patient and being willing to try and communicate with them. If you tell them, oh, ask someone else, that just shows a lack of motivation. I would suggest hearing people to try and use more gestures and facial expression when talking with someone who's deaf. That will help us to better understand each other when we're having a conversation. Keep an open mind for communication. Even if it's difficult, don't get frustrated easily. There's still other ways to communicate.
Okay, so we're back. You can see me. Great. So that was just a brief trailer of my project and the experiences of the deaf and hard of hearing community. There's also the deaf and blind community too that experience their own challenges. So hopefully in the future, once COVID is, kind of resolved, we'll be able to kind of have better access in the future for the deaf and hard of hearing community. So once again, maybe at the end of all of these presentations, you guys will take the time to watch the whole documentary. So thank you so much. That's everything.
Thank you, Miko. We will probably have time at the end of the presentation, and we'll just stream that live documentary. I think this work is of critical importance today. Because it's very easy to forget that people with various difficulties in communication, that's compounded by all of the things that all of us have been through. I also want to say that it's been wonderful. We've had a wonderful time in this class. And I'd like to thank Diana Morgan and Erin Ireland, who have been with us for the entire time as interpreters. That has really, really been a wonderful asset for this class to have that constant, steady relationship with the interpreters. And I think that Miko's been been fully part of this class because they've been able to help with the interpreting. So I'm really, really excited to see what happens with this documentary out in the world, because I think it's going to make a big impact. Next, we've got Paris Benson, who is talking about her project, which is called Wings. And Paris will tell you about her vision for this and the result, which I think you're going to find is quite extraordinary. Paris?
Hello. I'm gonna share. All right, hello, my name is Paris Benson. I decided to do my capstone on a zine based on the experience of menstruation, and I called it Wings. Kind of how it all started. So first off, social media. It really took off. I noticed last summer TikTok bloomed with all of these videos of people kind of sharing their experiences of when they got their periods. And I was just really shocked by how many people responded to that. There were so many comments, like over 64,000 comments on this one video of just people sharing their like really personal stories. And I felt really attached to that. Second of all, there's kind of this lack of shared information between all genders regarding this topic, like how to put a tampon in or how to put a pad on or what color period blood is. I feel like a lot of people are missing out on that information. Third of all, being uncomfortable with their bodies in the most natural form, this whole project made me reflect kind of on my own experiences. And I was like, why have I never shared these like really funny or embarrassing stories with friends or family? And that's because it's been such a taboo and kind of suppressed topic. And finally, I was really inspired by the Feminine Mystique I had read last semester. There was a newspaper in the 1960s kind of asking housewives to write these stories. They were going to collect them and kind of share and publish them. And it kind of united them that they weren't alone in their experiences, because they felt really isolated being a housewife, but they only knew that they thought they were the only ones experiencing it. But once the magazine published it, everyone saw everyone's responses and they were like, wow, like I'm not alone. So the next step was to do a call for entry. So I put something on my Instagram story, kind of asking people to submit stories through Google Forms. I received over 25 entries from friends, strangers, and even social media followers. And something I really learned about myself was that I love to curate. So I curated all these stories to kind of highlight the truths of living with the period. So these are kind of just examples of some of the questions I asked in the Google Forms. And I got a really good range of responses from different people and different ages, and just people in all different walks of life. And it was really nice to see how open and vulnerable people were in this response. And here's one of the quotes. So there I was, stuffing tissue into my underwear in the driver's seat of my parked car on some suburban street, hoping the guy mowing his lawn wouldn't see me, only to find out I actually did remember to put my menstrual cup in all along. So before I talk about the zine, I just want to show you kind of my visual inspiration. When I was younger, some of my references were of like children illustrations, and it was very sterile and corporate, and it wasn't really art driven. So I wanted to focus on the art piece, be more conceptual, be inclusive, and kind of do this mixed media with photo, collaging, and design. So let the work begin. So I had 4 major photo shoots, and throughout this whole semester, I've been kind of collecting clothes and jewelry and shoes and just bring my vision to life. And wardrobe was a really big part of it. And I really am inspired by vintage and contemporary styling. And then after that, I just started plugging in the images to kind of see how the layout was going to look. After 5 months of planning, photographing, designing, publishing, Wings was born. Wings is actually being made right now in the UK, and it's printed broadsheet, and these are the measurements at the bottom. It's made on newsprint. I didn't want to do anything glossy or high end because I feel like a newsprint is more personal. It's more common, ordinary, everyday, and it is 16 pages long. And then this is me flipping through the pages. So those are all the pages. So what now? So basically what I want to do is I want to sell them, and I want to donate all the proceeds to an organization in Rochester who supply pantries of menstrual products such as pads and tampons. Once I receive them, they haven't shipped yet, or they haven't come in yet. I want to put them on sale on my Instagram story, so please be on the lookout. My Instagram handle's at the bottom. And the package will include zines, the sticker, and a little decorative pamphlet. And thank you for joining. And that's all I have.
Thanks so much, Paris. I have to say that this is something that I encourage people to find and read, because there's a lot of funny stories and interesting perspectives in there. And it's a beautifully designed. We're waiting for it to come back from the printer in England at the moment, and it should arrive any day now. The other thing that Paris said that I think is important for me to emphasize is she said, I love to curate. And it's something a lot of students at RIT in the photo school, and particularly in visual media, find out is that they really enjoy that curation and the management aspects of pulling things together, pulling people together. And I think you're going to see that reflected in other projects as well. But we'll wait and see what other people have to say about curation and management. Our next speaker, and the other thing I want to say is we spent a lot of time working on titles, the titles of these presentations, and I really wanted people to get down to the best possible word or a couple of words, and I think that you see that reflected here in the titles of these. The next presentation is by Audrey Burns, and her title is Launchpad, which she came to after a lot of conversation with the class, and she'll tell you what that's about. So Audrey.
Hi, Frank. I will share my screen right now. Can everyone see that all right? Full screen, everything? Perfect. So I just want to say hi and thank everyone for coming. I can't really see who's live streaming this or who's going to see this after with the recording, but just wanted to thank everyone so much for a great year. It's been a crazy year, and it's just weird to say that this is the end of the 4-year journey. I'm really excited to show you guys this project and show the world this project. It took a good while, and I'm just really proud of it. So let's get started. So what is Launchpad? Launchpad is all about environmental education. So today's youth are crucial to tomorrow's environment. Launchpad is a children's educational system focused on teaching sustainable practices through eco-friendly activities and project-based learning. It is designed to empower and inspire the next generation and to make leaps and bounds in saving our planet while having fun. So I'm really interested in sustainability and education, and coming from a STEM background, I wanted to mold that all into one final project. And with branding and the whole visual media program, I've gotten to learn those skills and make it come to life. So yeah. So with any project, you need to come up with a name. And like Frank said, it did take a lot to even just name it. And that's the first part. Just coming up with name ideas, and then to try to capture that youthful energy, but also that organic nature, with also moving on to typeface iterations and trying to kind of really get that perfect typeface. It seems so subtle and the different changes, but they really make a huge difference. So I ended up with the name Launchpad. I wanted to kind of spark a kind of exciting kind of nature, very like moving forward, but also has that kind of, scientific element to it. And with this typeface that is very bold, but also very legible, so it kind of relates to children in a way. And it's very like circular, so it's not too harsh for children. Next part of the process is, again, a subtle one, but it's really about colors and thinking about all these different combinations, all these different shades, and really about capturing the children's attention, but also the parents, and knowing your audience and what the whole brand idea you want to get across. So each combination was tried and tested and trialed, everything with multiple different iterations. If you could see my Illustrator artboards, it's just colors of the same word over and over again. I probably am sick of seeing the word Launchpad, but it turned out really great. So the final identity that I came up with is a very subdued color palette with youthful shades. So it still retains to children's marketing, but also really emphasizes an organic nature. And when paired with these kind of shapes that I really love doing, because I was really inspired by children's illustrations and construction paper cuttings that you have like when you're in kindergarten, to make kind of like a organic, imperfect kind of illustrations. So I really loved this combination, and it's just fun. So the focus of Launchpad is themed around kits that teach different learning objectives surrounding sustainability. So there was 3 kits that I kind of developed in the process. The first one is Pollinator Crisis. The second one is Food Waste. And the third one is Water Pollution. So kids can talk about these kinds of issues that affect our environment, but also have a craft that gets kids excited about it and can actually help with different practices. For example, the pollinator crisis one is going to be a fun little handout. And in that handout, we talk about taking pollinators and the fact that they're going missing, and bees are going missing, and all kinds of pollinators are not in our environment anymore, so our ecosystem is having an issue. So they can create a craft of making seed paper. So they get to make their own paper and take recycled scraps and have a collection of wildflower seeds in the kit that they sprinkle in, and they can go around their community. They can take the paper, it'll dissolve into the ground, and they'll have a wildflower garden that really helps pollinators and can create a better ecosystem. So it gets kids involved, and it gets kids introduced to this issue, and then teaches them what they can do to make a difference, while also learning the importance of their role in the environment. So in the first kit, in Pollinator Palooza, there is an instructional foldout, which is what I just showed you, an introduction. So it gets them kind of introduced in a very palatable, very easy, understandable way, being like, hey, there's an issue, what can I do? There's instructions on how to make the craft, and then there's the supplies, and then there's always going to be some sort of like little giveaway, little grab bag type thing. So honey sticks, so gets them excited, like I want to save the bees because I love honey, and they get to kind of collect that. Also with collectible stickers in each box. So each kit will have a sticker for that box, and then once you have the entire boxes, you have the full set of stickers. So hands-on learning is really important, and this is what I really focused on, and this is the driving factor of Launchpad. Sustainability education encompasses all subjects, but really gives students and children a real-world skills to then follow through with it and grow up in their life with all these skills. And through Launchpad, kids learn the importance of their impact, and it teaches them that they can make small changes to make a really big difference. And it's just a simple craft that can make a huge difference, and that can get them really excited about these kinds of fields later on in their life. So here's an example of the boxes, the packaging. It's really bright, really youthful. It's going to be recycled cardboard, very eco-friendly, with eco-friendly dyes as well. And it includes the saying "Spark, Sprout, Grow," which is kind of the tagline of Launchpad. It really encompasses the whole thing in 3 little short words to get people really interested, really excited, and to really grow this love for the environment. Here are the 3 stickers. So each one is in each kit of the Spark, Sprout, Grow, and they include kind of a snippet of the information. So the Grow one has the flower on it for the pollinators and everything like that. Another one of the kits is the food waste kit, and that teaches kids that they can like watch how much food they're wasting and the kind of issues with wasting food and what they can do to make a difference. And they can screen print a grocery bag to buy fruits and vegetables and healthy eating, and use a reusable bag so they can help the environment as well, but also make a fun bag they can get excited about going to the store and excited about cooking and excited about learning about how they can make a difference. That is it for me, and thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank you, Audrey. I think one of the things that you should be starting to see here is that visual media program, you start out with the elements of photography and design and color and type and all of the little pieces that go into this. But the students, by the time they do their capstone projects, are thinking about the big picture, about connecting up to the world, about connecting up to really important issues in the world, and then creating an entire campaign around that. So Launchpad is a great example of where Audrey has taken all of those skills that she's learned, and she's put them all together into this vision. And I think that all of these projects reflect the same kind of thinking, and it's really quite remarkable to watch the progress of these through the senior year, as they develop into these full concepts. So thank you so much. The next concept is one that's related to the problem of creating a professional look and feel on social media platforms with imagery. Alyssa Loukola is going to talk about her project, which is called Preset Your Brand. So Alyssa.
Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa Loukola. And before I share my screen, I'm just going to explain a little bit more about what Frank was talking about. So for my capstone, I focused on the importance of cohesion and how you can achieve cohesion through using presets. Presets put a filter over an entire image, and it highlights certain characteristics within that image. They are easy and effective, and they set up your page and pictures, set them apart from the rest with just a click of a button. So I created this book called Preset Your Brand here, and it includes 21 original presets. Now I will share an online version of this book. So, all right, here we are. This is Preset Your Brand. I'm not going to go through the whole book because the book is about 140 pages long, but I'm just going to give you a bit of an idea. So this is how it's formatted. Each of the presets has an original name that kind of describes the vibe or the feel of the preset. On the right hand here side, you see the name of the preset or one of the presets. And then on the left hand side here, you see a little hint of what it's going to be. And then next, this book specifically is focused on Instagram and how to make an Instagram page look cohesive and professional. So on the right here, there is a mock Instagram that I made. The handle is the name of the preset. And then the bio includes the feeling of the preset. So it kind of, if somebody were to look at this and try and figure out which preset they want, they can try and see which feeling describes them. So here, this one's called Clementine, and it feels bright, shiny, and radiant. The Instagram page includes 9 original photos, all done by me. They're actually all iPhone photos because I wanted it to be super user-friendly. Anybody can use the presets, and you can see they look good on any quality photo. So here's 9 photos with the preset. And then on the left-hand side, I explained what looks best with the preset. So this is explaining what you should be looking for when you're actually taking the photo before you add the preset. So here for Clementine, you would look for oranges, light browns, yellows, and midtones. Then I'm showing the before and after. The before is the 9 original photos without any editing, straight from the camera in a square format. And then the after here on the right is all of these 9 photos with the preset Clementine on it. You can see the difference between the 2 grids and how it looks way more put together on the right side than it does on the left. you can also see on the left how I was looking for those oranges and yellows to then really enhance them with the preset. So throughout this book, it's got quite a few pages, and I show you 21 presets that have just one for every color, and it's one for the lights and darks of the color and a combo between two colors. So every color includes orange, purple, red, pink, blue, yellow, and green. And I felt that it really shows that you can personalize just about anything that you feel like represents you, you can make into a preset and make your page more cohesive with it. So now I'll just scroll through a couple here. This is the dark orange. So Clementine was the light orange and Rustic Sunset is the dark orange. And it's the same format, shows you what looks best with it, tells you how it, the feeling that it brings, the before and after. And then it goes to the combos that I was telling you about. So here it's a combination, Sienna Lilac is a combination between the orange and the purple. So then I created an Instagram with orange and purples and a preset more specifically that highlights these two things, or these major colors. And then I go into light purple here. So this one's called Serenity. All light purple, same format. And then dark purple. This one's called Amethyst. And you kind of get the idea. Then finally, I'm just going to show you this one that transitions between purple and red. It's called Hibiscus. Same exact thing. And yeah, it does that. It's same format for about 140 pages. Now I'm just going to end off by, I do plan to make these filters, these presets available for purchase. And this book itself, that is going to be like a guide to how to make your own Instagram look very cohesive and professional. That will all be, I'm going to sell the book on Amazon and I'm going to sell the presets on my website. So those are not done yet and not available yet, but they will be within the next couple weeks. So if you're interested, follow me on my Instagram here. It's @AlyssaLoke_. Thank you very much for watching.
Thanks so much, Alyssa. One thing that it really impresses me here with in the past couple of years is how students have gone from using platforms like Instagram or TikTok as in a very primitive way to thinking about these platforms in a much more sophisticated way, and then ultimately as designers, as system designers. And the other thing about this project that's so interesting is just the taxonomy, the organization of color, of all these different color combinations and things like that, which was a major part of the work. So for those of you who really want to project a much more professional image using Instagram at this point, you should contact Alyssa. I think we also talked about the fact that this will be, these ideas that she's has been creating here, and the organization of this is something that will be able to be applied across all future social media platforms. So students are thinking way ahead of me in many cases about the future of media, and that makes me extremely happy. The next presentation, we're going to go to Texas, and Kolby McKay is going to talk to us about his project, which involves educating people and showing people a world that they interact with almost on a daily, hourly basis, but they have no idea how it actually works. So Kolby.
Thank you, Frank. Hello from Texas. It's been a wild adventure working on this project here in Texas, away from, RIT. And let me share my screen. All right. here is this project, and it's going to be talking about mainly about different breeds of cattle and why do we use cattle. So I'm going to be explaining more about that at the end on my website. And right now I'm going to explain to you the details of the process I made through this website on creating this website. So all right, what is Agri-Cattle? It is a website for educational purposes of explaining why do we have cattle, what is it for, and what are the breeds, and explain all the details about the cattle through my works and my creativity into this website. And why did I choose this topic is because I am stuck here in Texas, unfortunately, for over a year due to COVID and travel restrictions and all the complications. So the purpose I create Agri-Cattle is because I live here on a ranch and we raise cattle. So I thought, why not use that lifestyle, what I deal with every day here in Texas, and bring it out to you guys and educate all of you about how the cattle works and the details of each breed and what it's mainly for. And why did I choose this? Because since I'm stuck here in Texas and I had to figure out how to use all of my knowledge from what I learned at RIT through the visual media major and use all the equipment here in Texas. So I thought, well, why not just put it all online and put it out there with all of my devices, which is my camera, laptop, and my iPad. And since I live in the middle of a country where there's a lot of cattle in the surroundings, so I went out there, take some pictures, and I use my iPad as Procreate to draw and design, and then transfer it into the computer, and then work my way from there. So here is my process of the works on my logo and the title. So through the discussion, through the visual media group, we all talked about like removing the neck, trying to give a focus on the head and the horns. That is a symbol of a cattle. And for the title, we all agreed to stick with the horns because when I went out to take pictures, I took pictures most of a cattle with horns. So I feel like it's the best fit. So these are the works on my logos and title. And another works I did is that since I cannot travel all over the United States to take pictures of different breeds, so I came up to the idea of drawing on my iPad on Procreate with the Apple Pencil, which is nice. And I kind of make it a drawing of each breeds in the most simple way to express what it looks like. So there are like total of 16, 17 breeds, and you'll see more details about that in the website at the end of this. So here are the photo samples I took around here. It is like within 15-minute range of drive around here, and I saw some cattle on the side of the road and take some pictures. It's a fun adventure going out there taking pictures. All right, so this is what the layout looks like on both devices. Actually, I created a device that would look good on the phones and on a laptop. And I use Wix.com to edit and then put all of my works together into Wix account. And I am going to show you the website, and I'm going to walk you through the website, how everything works, how it shows. Here are all the images I took of different cattle, and most of them have horns. And that gives like a powerful meaning from it, like strong. So in the introduction, I explain why do we have cattle, and these are all the information, like they create energy for us by eating grass that is main power source from the sun. So they convert all that energy to themselves, and then they provide so many things to us that we can't do. Like they produce milk, they produce meat, and they also, another positive side of having a cattle is to keep the environment safe by reducing the risk of fire ranges like fire. So they keep the grass low to prevent from lightning and all the stuff that will catch it on fire easily with the tall grass. So some people use cattle to keep the grass low and keep it safe as possible, and also produce milk for us and meat and all the parts that they can provide for us. So there are two different groups of cattle that people mainly use it for. The first one is meat, which is what our cattle does. What we do is we breed them. We do the breeding part. We do not do the ending result of the harvest plant. That's their thing. That's not what I do. I raise them, I take care of them, make sure they have a life, and that's what we do. So we breed them and produce offsprings, and usually they're sold after 4 months old, and then send it out to the harvest plant, and they raise them from there and take it care of from it up there. So here are all different breeds, and they have details about why do they have it, where it's from, where it started, and the characteristics and the fun facts about each of them. So here are all the different breeds in the meat industry for the cattle. And our cattle is Brangus. And that's what we use because it's a combine of both breeds into one, which is a Brahma. Brahma is this one, and Angus is the first one. The reason why we have Brangus is because Brahma is very heat resistant and bug resistant, and disease resistant. And Angus is mainly good for produce offsprings and raise them. They're really great mothers. So we combine them both, crossbreed them, and then now we have Angus, and it's the best fit for us to raise and breed them and make money out of it. So the last one I had to mention, because Texas Longhorn is the biggest model for Texas because of its horns and power from the cattle, and it's started in Texas and it's transported from another continent, and it's the first cattle breed to be able to survive on its own in the United States. So now we move on to dairy. You know how dairy produce breeds, they milk them and then create milk and cheese and all the products for them, and they only can produce milk for 3 years, and after that they could raise them to use to keep the loans low and also use it for the meat produce. And here is the galleries of all the photos I took around the ranch. So it gives the people an idea of what it looks like having a cattle in their own, backyard or whatever. And these are all different kinds of breeds that I have found and taken photos of, just to give people an idea of what it looks like and gives us style. And if you want to learn more about this cattle, is the resources. And that's where I got most of the information from. So if you want to go to their website and learn more details about the cattle and, help yourself. And thank you for listening to me talking my way through this project and about how my lifestyle is here in Texas. How do I stop saying? All right.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Kolby, thank you so much. This project has been a lot of fun because, but it's been difficult because when Kolby first was realized he would be in Texas and not be able to be up at RIT for the spring semester, He said, there's nothing down here. And I said, but there you live on a cattle farm. And so eventually he developed this idea of creating an information resource, which for those of us who live in the cities and the north, away from that part of the country, is just fascinating. And I love the artwork. I love the drawings that you've done. So congratulations on that. Our next speaker is Tanner Newman, and Tanner has a wonderful concept for an app that I think is sorely needed. So Tanner.
Yeah, let me, I'm gonna see if I can get my, there we go. So hi everyone. My project is a concept, like Frank said. I created this design for an app. I really wanted to showcase my design skills that I've learned from visual media at RIT. So I created a prototype in Adobe XD, and then I made a short video, which I will show in a minute, which first of all showcases kind of the features that I would want to include, and also is really a demonstration of some of the skills that I learned at RIT in terms of video production. So I show two different videos. One is shorter and doesn't have a voiceover. It'd be ideal for something like something like social media, Instagram, where you want people to just be able to quickly see what it's about. Second one is more in-depth, be something on YouTube, where you have a voiceover and there's a few more details about the app. So without further ado, I will go ahead and start the video. Paw Planner is a brand new app that helps keep track of everything that goes into caring for your pet. Organizing the average human lifestyle is hard enough. Why shouldn't there be a way to help organize your pet's lifestyle too? At the core of Paw Planner is the events feature, a way to keep track of to-do items as well as important dates or appointments. Items could be scheduled daily or for a specific date in the future. Once you've created an event, you can share it with another Paw Planner user to make sure everyone's on the same page. If something notable happens during the scheduled event, write it down in the notes section of the app. Here you can keep records of unusual occurrences, or just write down something you want to remember. Notes can be assigned to certain pets or linked to an event. Since taking care of an animal often requires collaboration, Paw Planner makes it easy to send messages and share information with other users. For example, if your pet sitter also has Paw Planner, it's easy to share important documents, upcoming events, or relevant notes. You can also keep records of significant contact information in the address book. With Paw Planner, you can log individual purchases and see an overview for your spending each month. Segment items into categories so you can see buying habits at a glance. So another thing I learned how to do as part of my education was create a website with HTML. So I'm going to share that right now. This is, actually, hold on 1 second. I'm going to see if I can get our interpreter here as well. So this is a quick microsite which I made in HTML. And the idea for this would be, if this were an actual product, to be able to show an overview of what the app is and link to it in social media. In this case, I show the first video clip, the shorter one, and then I have links to my own personal site, and then an overview of the project that I did and an overview of the features of the app. So if this were to be a real app, it would involve using a similar pitch to what I've shown today, and bringing it to a company which would have more resources and more trained people to actually create a proper app. So I think that's it. I'm going to go back to the Zoom. Okay.
All right, Tanner, thank you so much. I should say Tanner is responsible for streaming this to YouTube as well. So those of us who are watching the Zoom meeting did not see the presentation, so but it was streamed to the YouTube channel. And the thing that I always get a kick out of with this is a couple of the expressions in the Paw Planner world, like a play date for a dog, play date with Spot, and then just the concept of a pet lifestyle. It's our culture is evolving rapidly in the direction of humanizing the pets to the point where they have a lifestyle, which is great. But I just think I think that there's got to be a market for this because there's so many people who are wrestling with these issues. So appreciate it very much, Tanner. Our next presentation is by Trish Pickelhaupt, and Trish is going to be talking about a social media platform that tries to break the mold of social media platforms, and she'll explain that to you. It's something called Sonder Talk. So Trish.
Hi, hello, can you hear me? Thank you everybody for coming to this today. I am so excited that we were able to put something together to kind of spotlight all the hard work that's been happening in this major. I just wanted to say that off the bat. I'm just really happy that we've been able to celebrate in this way, especially graduating tomorrow and just kind of getting this in. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So I hope you can all see that. Today I'm talking to you guys about Sonder Talk, which is a capstone project done in collaboration with, and Sonder Talk is a lot of things, but at its core, it is an online experience that connects curious strangers in authentic conversations. So as I mentioned, this project was done in collaboration with Julia Hawley, who's an industrial design student here at RIT. We came up with this idea in August of 2020 after spending many months together in quarantine and having what we like to call these Sonder Talks, where we would just get into these conversations about religion and our childhoods and spirituality and all these things that a lot of the times I feel like at the forefront of a conversation with. So we kind of got into these authentic conversations together, and we're thinking, why isn't this the dialogue that happens talk like this with, let alone somebody new to talk with? Which brings us to a feeling that a lot of people feel all over the world at every age, loneliness. Before coronavirus was a pandemic, the loneliness epidemic existed for many, many years. These are some statistics from the Health Resources and Services Administration, just talking about how a lot of Americans in specific report feeling lonely or socially isolated. They feel like they aren't fulfilling in their relationships. And social media, honestly, it sometimes adds to that in giving people a false sense of social involvement, in the sense that they feel like they have friends, but when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, they don't feel like there's really anybody that they can talk to. And so we thought, how can we create something that bridges this? And you might be thinking, okay, this exists. What, you're like, what's out there right now? Where can I meet somebody new? And so you might think, Tinder or Hinge or dating apps that have an ultimate romantic focus, and that's the undertone of the entire thing. So then maybe you think about, social media that we know and we love, and but you think about that, and that's mostly mutual connections. It's mostly people that you already know or friends of friends. You don't really go to Facebook to meet somebody new. And on top of that, they're kind of there, but it is still revolving around these conversations. Like Goodreads is about books and yada yada, and Reddit is very interest-based, as well as video chat, which connects people that you already know in your existing circles. Our goals in creating Sonder Talk was to create an experience that could connect people, not only to meet somebody new, but to have an authentic conversation with them, and to utilize the internet for what it's powerful for. It's for healthy social interaction, not just dopamine and likes and comments that this Instagram and the culture behind social media has thus far promoted. Close the social media gap, like I said, what's out there, and we're remedying that. And then lastly, hopefully inspire individuals to bring more empathy. But there was a challenge, of course. How do we create a safe space and design an experience that leads to authentic connections? It's not about just meeting somebody, it's about feeling safe and feeling like you can talk with them, connecting with them, and being able to create a space designed for this was definitely hard. So it took a lot of brainstorming, a lot of mind mapping. We met twice a week for about 8 months, and probably more than twice a week because we were always thinking about this. And we had a lot of questions to answer. How long will these conversations be? Is it just one-on-one? How do we prompt these conversations? And what will be called? And as you can see, we landed on the name Sonder, which kind of came to us actually through a social media platform, through TikTok. But Sonder is a word that was created as a part of the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, which is a project from Tumblr way back in the early 2000s. And it just describes this feeling of realizing that every other person that you meet lives a complex and vivid life that is full of their own connections and challenges and likes and dislikes. And what we're trying to do is to not only get people to realize just you living in this world, but to connect with people beyond that, to make the decision to meet somebody new, having that empathy. So Sonder Talk is more than just a social platform or experience, but at its core, it is a virtual experience where strangers from all over the world engage in authentic conversations via Zoom call. We also are promoting a brand that talks with honest communication at its core, and we exist online and have a community of people that is growing on social media. And lastly, we're also developing a podcast that integrates our community's experiences with conversations hosted by me and Julia. So actually, the next thing is a video that Tanner's going to share. If I could pass that off to Tanner to share that video that's kind of describing, the process of how a Sonder Talk works. The process behind a Sonder talk is like this. People who are interested sign up via a Google form where they tell us information such as how they're feeling today, what orb represents themselves, some questions they might want to discuss with their partner, and someone who they might want to talk with. After that, we pair people together based on their availability. Participants receive an email with instructions and a Zoom link invite. Then, once the talk begins, they join the Zoom call and are guided by Sonder by providing prompts when asked.
I think we're ready for a new question.
Certain prompts could be, what is something that you want to try? Prompts like these really generate these conversations between people that go beyond the small talk, go beyond talking about the weather that day, and really allows them to establish an authentic connection from the bat.
Hopefully it will equip people with more confidence to start these sorts of conversations with people in their daily life.
We just want to make the experience as comfortable for people as possible, and so for that reason, we're always open to feedback.
We often try to ease into like a deeper conversation just by the questions that we ask. When people are in their conversations, we kind of give them a safeguard to exit the conversation if they get uncomfortable by messaging us privately in the Zoom chat. We always collect feedback after every Sonder talk and make sure to pay attention to any things that made people feel uncomfortable so that we can minimize that as much as possible.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. So yeah, as you can see, that really just kind of describes the way that actually you partake in a Sonder talk. And that's a part of a video that lives on our homepage. That was also part of Imaginary Tea that gives a little bit of background on the project as well as how to get involved with it. So let me share my screen again. So the next part of our experience is our social media, which is, we are on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and we have kind of been working on just cultivating a community that understands what we're doing and what we're trying to do. So our Instagram is mostly posts that highlight kind of some of the reflections that have happened in Sonder talks. We don't share people's personal information, but we do share moments of kind of like encouragement and, people connecting where you can kind of get a sense of how these things go. And on TikTok, we have a community that is based largely around another part of this whole project that I'll get into next, which is our voicemail box. So we actually set up this voicemail box as part of the podcast because we wanted to have an open line to the community for people to be able to share any kind of reflections that they have, or just maybe they had a new thought that they wanted to share. And so we set up this little track phone. I literally have it right here. And for a while, the voicemails were just coming to this track phone, but it kind of blew up. And we've been getting voicemails from people all over the world for the past few months. And a lot of them are, reflections on their current life. And some of them, we put out a call to the community and said, we're doing a podcast episode, leave us this voicemail. And we've really opened it up to the community in this amazing way. It's been really, really enlightening to kind of just hear all these different voices and all of the people that connect with our mission. It's really been empowering for us. And that leads really nicely into the podcast, which is an expansion of this whole thing. Julie and I just thought, how can we emphasize these voices that are in our community even more? How can we talk about the things that we have been discussing between the two of us, and how do we open that dialogue into the rest of the world? So we have our first episode, besides the introduction, called The Loneliness Epidemic, is up on Spotify and other streaming platforms. And we plan to continue this post-graduation. Another little tidbit that was really awesome. Julia is an industrial design student. So because of that, we were able to have a live show at City Art Space in April, along with the industrial design students. Were so gracious to let us also present. And I was glad that I could be a part of it. So we just kind of simulated this in live time. What we do with the prompts, we had little cards that we gave out to people that have questions on the back of them. And, they could start a conversation with whoever they came with or a stranger. And this is a little just snippet of what we were doing that. And in the future, potentially we would grow into more live experimentations. We're really open to a lot of potential. So this is our website right now. We are, hopefully you guys can see this. So this is designed by Julia, and it's just kind of the home for everything Sonder Talk right now. We have our frequently asked questions. We actually have a talk guide you can click to have prompts with any conversation that you want outside of an actual Sonder talk, you know, all of this stuff. And then lastly, a super exciting thing is that we are hoping to expand actual working platform in the future. And Julia has designed this minimum viable product, which is kind of a wireframe of what we would like to create if we can get the funding and if we can get the resources. So I'll go back to here. Yeah, in summary, we've had 30 plus Sonder talks with 60 plus people. We've had a lot of engagement in our community, and we actually won 5th place in RIT Tiger Tank the other week, which was kind of an awesome thing to be involved with as well. So we're just really excited about what we can bring to people. We hope that we can inspire people to spark these conversations with the people in their life and to just foster more honest, open communication with the people they love and the people that they don't even know. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you, Trish. I just have to tell my experience with a Sonder talk. I've known Trish. Trish and I have been talking for 4 years, actually longer than that, probably, because I think we had our first conversation before you came to RIT. But I went down to the City Art Space and had a conversation with Trish, a Sonder talk with Trish, and you pick up a little card and it asks a question. And the thing that amazed me was we actually had a conversation that we never would have had without that apparatus, without that system, because the questions are things that you normally wouldn't ask somebody. And they're things that we're all interested in talking about, but how do you get to the point where you can start the conversation? So I'm really excited about the potential for this and many of these projects for future development. And I love to hear the students talk about the next steps, because normally when you finish a project like this, you go, I never want to see it again. I'm done. That'll happen if you go to graduate school, by the way. You'll be so sick of it, you never want to see it again. But anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, Frank.
Our next speaker is Charlene Purchas, and Charlene is going to share with you an idea that she's developing now. But Charlene is actually going to finish her capstone in the fall. So what we have here is a kind of preliminary look into what she's working on. And I'll turn it over to Charlene to tell you about that.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Charlene, and I'm going to share my screen. So I decided that my project will focus on deaf artists and photographers. I started the first magazine for a class, and I will show you the magazine I was working on. So this is a summary of my project and my magazine. I've noticed that at RIT, there are many hearing artists and photographers, but it's not really visible, the deaf and hard of hearing artist community. So I really wanted to share more about what the deaf and hard of hearing artist community is working on. So this has already been posted on issue.com, and I will be showing the actual website later. And this is the second magazine that was produced. This is a sample. I would like to work more on this. I have been interviewing deaf and hard of hearing art students. Okay, this is the first page, and this is on issue.com. The contents. One student that I interviewed, I wanted to know how the person became deaf and what their experience was, and then their experience as a photographer, And I also asked about what they were trying to express through their work. This is another student that I interviewed, similar interview, similar topics. I'm going to continue to do more interviews with students, and I'm planning on connecting with more deaf and hard of hearing artists soon. I also want to create thank you cards for the deaf and hard of hearing individuals that have supported my project. And that's all I have developed so far. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you so much, Charlene. We've really been so fortunate at RIT to have the NTID community. NTID is part of RIT. And so deaf and hard of hearing people have always been part of the RIT community. And in the visual media program, we have a strong core of people who are working on products and communication and that address these issues. And I think that RIT really is at the forefront of this. So I'm really excited to see the work that Charlene's going to be producing this next year. And I appreciate the fact also that she wanted to present, even though her capstone is officially not finished until the end of fall. So thank you, Charlene. The next presentation is by Zak Rossi. And Zak is going to be showing us an interesting concept where he's kind of time traveling between the world of what he thinks are a long time ago, but I think it was just yesterday. The design aesthetics of the 1990s versus today. And so, Zak, I'll hand it over to you.
Hello. Let me just share it real quick. So to simplify, what this project is, it is called the RetroModern, into which I am basically taking some design from like around the 90s, as well as and swapping them with their modern counterpart. I have focused mostly on the video game consoles, and so for the first one that I did, it was PlayStation. You have the PlayStation 1 on the left, and its current release is the PlayStation 5. So the interesting part was how exactly was I supposed to like transfer them over. But what was interesting is they're not too different in terms of what they did. They mostly focused on like dark background with the because the consoles are white, they stand out far more. So because of that, their transfer was pretty seamless. They were pretty similar. The only major difference is the how the PlayStation 5 is huge, and the PlayStation 1 is probably not even as big as your laptop. So the next one is I then went to Nintendo. I know the Super NES is not the first Nintendo console. That would be the NES, but I opt to do the SNES because as I was noticing, they were basically like the same color, and I wanted to essentially utilize different colors. So you have the SNES on the left, you have this Nintendo Switch on the right, and this is the result that I came up with. if the SNES has a more focus on the purple color, and for the Switch, you have this darker background and everything like that. The fun part was essentially trying to figure out, well, what can I work with their fonts? Their fonts and their logos are very different from one another. For like the SNES, I like tried to simplify the logo even more with the white instead of the color. And Nintendo Switch, I just tried to focus on what the SNES have for colors. And they're just very different consoles as a whole. So, or they're not, and there isn't really too much compared to them. The console for this company is usually varies heavily in each release. All right, and the last one was the Xbox X console, which not the best naming scheme because the first one is just called Xbox. Then they had, and now their latest one is Xbox Series X, which, great name. So, the interesting thing here is for the original Xbox, they didn't utilize their console on the system itself. So I focused on utilizing just full graphics for this one. So for the Xbox over the Xbox Series X, just make it confusing. I'm sorry. I basically, it was like the same thing. The Xbox Series X focuses heavily on the console design, and that's mostly its box art. And with that in mind, I decided to focus on its on the like little area on the left where it's where there's a bunch of lines, because the Xbox Series X focuses on the dots on the top of it. And when transferring over to Series X, I noticed that they did the same thing. They focused on the line for the box art. So this time around, I focused on the dots for the Series X. And what made me realize about this one is they both had like a simple approach to their box art over the years. Well, in both those years. So it ended up so the main thing that I took away from this like whole assignment, this whole project, was how different each one approached their box art design from like in both years, because these consoles were released around similar times. So it's interesting to see you're like, oh, they all had the same design philosophy, but they all utilized it differently. And the same towards the modern kind of idea of all their systems. But I've always had a heavy appreciation and interest towards the retro side of technology. So, as a whole, this was just something that really appealed to me. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Zach. One of the things that I've noticed in the visual media program is some students really become passionate about graphic design. Zach is one of the students who's just his heart is made for graphic design, and so this project is a study in looking at historical designs and kind of bringing them together in a way that I think other graphic designers really people who are very passionate about graphic design really appreciate these kind of things. What's the best, Zach? What's the best of the game consoles in your opinion? Because you're obviously experienced with the gaming world.
I am extremely biased towards Nintendo, honestly. They're not. And they're the first console, and they're still like the only one that I still own at the moment. And so, I'm mostly biased towards them, but I do have a heavy appreciation toward the other two.
All right. Well, that could, I don't want to start a fight here, so we'll end with that. But thank you very much. Our next speaker is Matthew Sluka, and Matthew's going to show you some of the amazing photography that he's done for his project here. Matt, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'll hand it over to you.
All right, great. Thank you, Frank. I want to share my screen. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Sluka, and now I will be showing you my series that was then, this is now. So this series that I've created is about recreating old painting into a modern COVID lifestyle. You will be seeing familiar and well-known painting that you have seen before by famous artists throughout history. Before I started this project, over the summer during the pandemic started during quarantine, I have done research and looked for some inspiration to help me get an idea of what I want to do. One day I found images of people who were recreating old painting using items they have at home. One of my favorite was The Last Supper, but with Jesus alone on Zoom with his disciples. That was when I knew what I wanted to do. The Girl with the Pearl Earring. This was painted by Vermeer in 1665 when he was working on a group of paintings. It illustrates a woman in a dark, shallow place, which draws the viewer's attention completely on her. It looks like as if it was caught in a brief moment of contemplation. She wears a blue and gold turban, pearl earring, and a gold jacket with a visible white collar. The Girl with the Maxed Earring. This represents a woman in a dark room, which brings the viewer's attention directly to her. She wears a white t-shirt underneath a gold jacket with toilet paper wrapped around her golden hair and two light blue mask earrings looped around her ears. Since COVID-19 began, we all had to change views of fashion to accommodate the new requirements for the public life. The Mona Lisa. This oil painting was created between 1503 and 1519 when Leonardo da Vinci was living in Florence. It presents a woman in a half-body portrait against a backdrop of a distant landscape. What was special about this painting was that the sitter, Mona Lisa, is looking directly at the viewer. What's also interesting is some speculate that this is a portrait of his mother or a self-portrait of Da Vinci himself. You can see a resemblance between the sitter and the artist's facial features. The Max Lisa. During the pandemic, mask regulation and social distancing policies were required to be followed in order to help prevent the spread of the virus. This photograph depicts a woman wearing a clear mask showing no emotion but distinctly exhausted during these challenging times. The woman is holding the spray bottle to help disinfect space around her and a backdrop filled with trees and an empty land with no one around. People were required to wear a mask and follow social distancing regulations. The Girl Reading the Letter at the Open Window. This was created in the late 1650s and was around the time Vermeer changed his pictorial technique. This astonishing technique was made possible by the camera obscura. The curtain in the painting creates a small space and isolates the subject. This technique became popular in Dutch art around the mid-17th century. The Girl Reading the Text at the Open Window. Restaurants, movie theaters, and bars shut down at the start of the pandemic. Our social life changed quickly as COVID cases started to rise. The best and safest way to socialize was to stay at home and talk virtually. Young adults couldn't fully experience their college careers because the majority of the schools were forced to shut down. And even grandparents were not able to see their children and grandchildren. It was a time where people were unable to see one another face to face. American Gothic. This painting was first publicly seen at the Arts Institute of Chicago, winning a $300 prize and instant fame for Grant Wood. Wood was visiting the small town of Eldon, where he saw a little wood-framed farmhouse. He decided to have his sister and their family dentist dressed up as farmers pose in their portrait as if it would be seen in a family album. The American pandemic. A majority of the businesses were forced to close, excluding the essential markets. Over time, businesses started to reopen, but many operate virtually with the use of Zoom. Zoom was a way for the world to stay connected without having to work in person. Some people wore business clothes on the upper half of their body and wore sweatpants on the lower half, since all you can see was from the waist up. Some who worked part-time wore comfort clothes during the most days, but were ready to go back to work any day. We can do it. During World War II, men went overseas to fight while women had to stay home to manage the home front. Instead of staying in the house doing house chores, some women worked in factories in an effort to help support the men fighting the war. Women were encouraged to take wartime jobs in the defense industry. It was the very first time women could work outside of their homes. We can get through this. Everyone has been affected by the global pandemic. Thousands of companies were forced to shut down. People lost their jobs and had to make adjustments to their new lifestyle. But people still had faith that they can get through this pandemic. The government gave unemployment for those who couldn't work. Zoom helped people stay connected virtually, and influencers, scientists, and a few political figures encouraged people to wear masks, social distance, and thoroughly wash their hands. We're all in this together. And right here, you'll see other images that made based off We Can Do It. But each poster had their different headlines. The Last Supper. One of the most famous artwork was painted between the years 1495 and 1498. This profoundly illustrates the moment Jesus informs his disciples that one of them will betray him. Da Vinci created this painting to focus on the facial expression, body language, and hand gesture. Finally, as shown in the painting, each disciple's reaction to Jesus' statement about betrayal is strongly visible. The Last Hope. Scientists all over the world work nonstop to create a vaccine for COVID-19, as doctors and nurses work the front lines to help patients who were tested positive for COVID. Scientists and researchers have been working together, gathering data to analyze COVID-19 for the whole year. And with the new research method, the first 2 vaccines were created within the first year of the pandemic. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this series, and thank you for your time.
Matthew, one of the things I really love about this is you were inspired by that. I think people will remember that early Last Supper, Zoom Last Supper thing, which was the first kind of humorous meme that I saw way back in March or April of last year. And then you end with your version of the Last Supper, which took a lot more work, I should say, than that original meme. And I really need people to know that each one of those figures in that were shot separately, and you composited that entire thing. Just a question: if somebody wants to see these things in more detail, where would they go?
So they can visit my Instagram post at Matt Sluka. And then there's also a link to the website. I'll also be posting it. And then as well as I also have a print copy of a book where you can see like all the information here. And then each post, they have like their own specific paragraphs of what I said. So you can read the history. And then like, I want people to like be able to read the COVID photos as if it was history. So like 10 years later, like our kids or grandkids or something like that, we're reading, they'll be like, wow, a very different like lifestyle than what they're used to.
Fantastic. A great project. Our next speaker is going to be Olivia Szpylman, and she is going to talk about a project that relates to the music industry, in the world of live music performance, which is really have had a tremendous struggle through the COVID period. So Olivia, tell us about your project.
Awesome. What's up, guys? So I'm going to share my screen with you real quick so you can see my PowerPoint. All right, so my name is Olivia Szpylman. My project is called When the Lights Go Out. And this project is a study on how the COVID-19 pandemic impacted the live music industry. And I'd like to start by saying I woke up this morning and I put on my nice clothes so I could do my presentation. And then I started thinking to myself, why would I want to look formal for a subject that isn't formal? Music, for all these people that I interviewed and for myself, is a part of who I am, and it's a part of who they are, and it has built us up to be the people we are today. So I decided to look the most like myself that I could, so I could share this story with you guys the best that I know how. So my story in music starts when I was 13 years old. My father sold his Corvette so he could buy me my first camera, because I was just begging my parents to say I could go out and do music photography of concerts. And they supported me through this whole thing. They got me to RIT. And as soon as I got to RIT, I was kicked off in Rochester in this vibrant, amazing music scene where I was able to meet all these wonderful people. But then sadly, of course, we all know COVID hit in spring of 2020. And the only thing I could possibly think to do was to create this project so I could give not only myself, but the other artists that I've worked with in the past a voice in this time where they were not allowed to do the thing that meant most to them, which was play live music. One artist that was making a huge difference in her own life during the pandemic was Dallas Green. She is a singer-songwriter from Rochester, New York. And at the very beginning of the pandemic, I think like all of us, Dallas struggled to get her footing. And she was very lost in kind of this throw of having to create something, all this pressure that people were putting on her. But music is her diary. It's her way of expressing herself. So she used this art that she loves to get herself back on her feet and connect with her family, who also write music, to uplift herself and to give herself a more positive outlook on the pandemic. So now Dallas is writing a new album and she's doing all these beautiful things. And she was the first person I interviewed. So this was super inspiring to me to see somebody who was using this art to kind of uplift themselves, which was not what I expected to find when I started this project and went searching for these artists. So I was curious to see where it would go from here and see if I would find more positivity. And I did. This is Ryan Sutherland. He is also a singer-songwriter from Rochester, New York. He is very unique. He is a one-man band and he plays blues music. So as you can imagine, his live shows are crazy cool, super fun. So it was super devastating for him to lose the opportunity to play in front of a live audience. He struggles in his everyday life with anxiety, like I think a lot of us do, and music is his way of expressing himself. So at the beginning of the pandemic, obviously when anxiety and depression and other mental health issues were at an all-time high, Ryan wrote an entire new album during this tragedy, during this pandemic, that helped him heal. And then he proceeded to share his story with other people around him and had people reach out to him to say that he was inspiring them to do better and take better care of their mental health during the pandemic. So Ryan not only used his music to save himself, but he used it to save the people around him. And this is Marcus Lee. He's another person that I interviewed. He has been more focused on helping his community during the pandemic. So outside of the pandemic, Mark is a huge philanthropist. He is always doing shows to raise money for a good cause. And I actually met him at one of these philanthropic shows the first time I shot for him. And he's a father of 3 and he's about to get married. So he's a very busy man. He's all about that hustle, but he never stops helping his community, especially during the pandemic, doing video shows to raise money and using his merchandise brand that he designs himself to raise money for these charities. So he's just an amazing person who's been all about his community since this pandemic started. And another person who has been all about the community since the pandemic started is this wonderful woman right here. Her name is Becca Kent Phelps, and she is a music teacher in Buffalo, New York. She was my teacher in high school, and so I decided to reach out to her to get a different perspective on how the pandemic was affecting teachers in the music industry. So as you can imagine, music programs in the arts in school were already fighting for their lives before the pandemic started. And Becca knows everything about that. She's a warrior for that cause. She fights to keep these programs alive in schools. But when the pandemic hit, obviously this got a lot harder. So she had to come up with all these ways to try to make remote learning work for these students. And she did amazingly. She was able to set up this remote concert for all of her students to come together safely and play their music, which was amazing. And they were so thankful for her. And she is just super focused on the mental health of her students, which I think is so tremendous, because that has been something that has been greatly pushed to the side during the pandemic. They're all focused on learning and making sure that everyone gets the material properly, and they're not too focused on how this is affecting these young people's mental health. So Becca making sure that these kids have this good mental health has been just excellent and amazing. And then Tart Vandelay is another artist that I worked with. This is Katie and this is Marty, and they are just a super fun pair. They're super zany. I met them in their basement when I went to photograph them for a school project. They came out with bubbles and paint. So obviously not being able to have those fun interactions with their fans and with their other friends during the pandemic has been tough for them. But they were actually focused on writing a new album during the pandemic, which was amazing. And they started reworking their music. So they got very lucky, and they were able to take this off time to rework their new style, their electronic music. And these two are actually classically trained in music, so they have a formal education in their art like I do. So seeing them be able to continue their weirdness through the pandemic, just like I have, has been super amazing while I was working on this project. And then finally, the last artist I got the chance to speak with was Hypnosis. They are a tragically hip cover band from Buffalo, New York, and they are some of the funnest dudes I've ever met in my entire life. So when the pandemic started, they decided to cut off all music. They decided to stop completely to protect themselves and their high-risk relatives from the virus, but this didn't stop them from having fun. They are still talking to each other every day because they met through music and they are best friends. So I just had such a blast speaking to them, and they were so positive. They were the most positive group I spoke to during this entire project. And they just are preparing themselves and staying in one piece so they can get back on the stage and handling this in their very own way, which is super amazing. And I was just so inspired by them and everybody else that I got the chance to speak to during the making of my project. So that's it for me for today. Gonna scroll through the book for a second while I finish up. But music is such a beautiful thing. And if you ever feel like you're down, just pick up, listen to some music, and stay weird, everybody. That's it for me.
I like the expression tragically hip. I'm tragically unhip, but I love the music. I love the fact that you concentrated on that, and you ended up. I think you were surprised in the middle of the project that you were getting so many positive messages from people. And I think that's really a theme throughout this entire experience that we've had here, is that you think you're going to hear a lot of complaining and a lot of negative, and there certainly are things that are very difficult for people, but then you start to see all of this positive energy, and it really uplifts you. You also get the award for having written the most, and the book is magnificent. So can't wait to see it in the flesh. So our last presentation today is going to be Violet Young, and Violet has an interesting title, Eudaimoments, and she'll explain to you what that word means. So Violet.
Hello. Share my screen really quick. Okay, so I'm Violet, and I have Eudaimoments. It's an online community of people who strive for fulfillment and wellness. Okay. So what is eudaimonia? This word is a term for human flourishing or living well and just general happiness. It's a Greek term, and I was inspired by this word because I wanted to create something where it would be an easy space to kind of work on your general well-being and, just be able to log different parts of your life that you want to work on. And so that's why I created Eudaimoments. And the moments part of that word is speaking to the pause or the moment that you're going to engage with the account and, work on this well-being. And so to create this, I started with, just creating a brand. So I started out with the colors and the fonts that I wanted to use. I picked all these colors because they're, neutral, but they still have a lively feeling to them. And then there are also some earthy tones incorporated in there so that it has somewhat of a natural feeling, and you'll feel, comfortable while you're engaging with this and be able to feel that, grounded feeling within the account. And same kind of thing with the fonts. I just want to stick very minimalistic, and you'll see that within my design style. So again, Eudaimoments was created so that we can kind of take our use of social media and twist it around pretty much 360, because the way that we use social media right now, I think, is very shallow. It's just a very, impersonal space. There's so many societal expectations to put your, best self forward, and creates this, false sense of perfection, which, isn't true. No one's truly perfect. What does that really mean to, us humans that are so different? And so by creating this space, I wanted you to be able to interact with it and just have a free moment to be able to reflect on your life and, different areas in your life that relate to wellness, instead of, mindlessly scrolling through social media and not really creating any sort of takeaway or actually consuming anything, really just pressing the like button isn't really a true connection. So I found this quote that kind of speaks to, I think, the original intent, I think, for social media. Again, it says we are very social creatures, we strive to connect with people and, create connections and learn, and become better versions of ourselves. And I think that if we use social media in this way that I think it's intending, we will have all of these benefits and, really be able to see a lot of personal growth. But currently, just the way that we, feel like we're meant to use social media and create this, kind of persona online that's so much different from ourselves. And again, you can use social media in any way that you want to, but I think there's still that pressure to, only share the good moments, because, why would anybody want to see negativity on their field or on this, on their screen? But, in a way that even is spreading negativity, because it's, just if you, are having a bad moment, then you shouldn't be able to, but that's not real life. So I wanted to create a space where you could share those, in between moments and, really encourage people to kind of put themselves out there. So these are sort of the intro slides for the account, and it kind of explains how the account would work and how you would get those benefits from engaging with the account, and explaining how the account can become sort of a community, because you can use this account in any way that will personally relate to you the most. And you can either, jot these things down personally, separate from your phone, or you can use the account even in that journaling way and put them in your comments, or, share it on your story, share it on your own account, or even through direct message. So an example of what the account would look like, so it would be a balance between photos and then that minimalistic design content, and there would be a bunch of different prompts, either through the general feed posts or in the stories, and different ways using the different Instagram tools. And by sharing your experiences within the account, you'll be able to not only keep a personal log with yourself, Because if you did choose to, send all of your responses or thoughts through the direct message, then you would sort of start to create a relationship with the account and have everything in one space. Or you can share it through the comments, like I said, and then you'll be able to see other people's responses as well. And so these are just some of the examples of different things that would be a part of the content. And, again, coming full circle, just different areas of wellness that I don't think that we will pay attention to enough in our daily lives. We're all super busy, and, thinking about ourselves is usually, I think, on the back burner. I think it's like the last thing that we think of usually when, I think we should put ourselves first more often. And again, to combat that sort of toxicity within social media, and, where it seems like, it's all about you, but is it really? Or are we really thinking about, like, am I, looking as good as this other person I see on my feed? Or, like, is my life as interesting as somebody else that I'm seeing on my feed? So again, being able to recenter back with yourself and ground yourself, in the true areas of your life that mean a lot. And being able to share that within the account, you'll be able to see the different perspectives that other people have, and maybe they'll be going through the same things as you. Again, when we're interacting with social media, it was intended to create these connections with people who we might not actually have a direct connection to. They might be across the world. They might be someone that we've never met before. But again, with the, pressures to put our, best face forward, I think that it actually becomes a very isolating environment, because if we're thinking so critically of ourselves, then we won't even have time to think about, authentic life, or, the authenticity of our friends, with the people that we do know within, that we are connected to on social media. We know, like, what's really going on in their lives and what they're actually putting on social media. And so by creating this community, I want people to really put themselves out there and be able to connect and see that they're not alone, and, create that sense of community and be able to see the different perspectives that people are breaking down, their barriers and different hardships that they might be going through. It might be similar to yours, and you might be able to see a different way to, go through those things and think about them, and then connect with people in that way. And so again, when we are vulnerable like this, we can step out of our comfort zone and then actually have room to grow. And personally, I'm always trying to become, a better person than I was yesterday. And I'm always striving to be, the best version of myself. And, again, like I said, sometimes that is just not on the forefront, of my to-do list. But I wanted to create a space for other people to feel like that they can do that and really be able to work on themselves. And why not in something that we're already engaging with every single day, something that we're already so used to using, but just using it in a different way. And at the same time, being able to, eliminate that, very just almost slave-like interaction that's just not fulfilling at all, by using social media like we do today. Again, just like the mindless scrolling and taking almost nothing away from our feeds, when we really could be sharing, our true thoughts and what we are maybe doing in our everyday lives, and being able to build real relationships and connections, so that, we have more positivity in our life, because I think we could all use that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Violet. I just have to say one thing as we conclude here. We're going to run Miko's full video in the stream. So anybody who wants to stick around and watch that, we'll start that right after in a moment here. But I just like to say that I very often have conversations with people who don't live in my world or in our world, who don't have regular contact with people of your generation, and get their news through the media, get their news through the toxic social media or toxic mainstream media, and have very, very dark ideas about what's happening in the world, and compounded by the crisis that we've been through, the medical crisis that we've been through. And I find myself very often saying, I wish you could spend a week with me and just interact with my students, because if you did that, you would come away with an entirely different idea about the future, because you guys have connected with the world in all kinds of wonderful ways. And I think if we put our future in your hands, I think we're going to be very, very happy. So you've also shown what a program like visual media in a school like RIT can do in taking somebody from the desire to make pictures, or the desire to play around with the primitives of communication, the primitive tools of communication, the type and the color and the pictures and things like that, and turn it into something that really has deep, deep meaning and importance for the world. And if you took all of these projects together and you looked at how they touch the world in all these different ways, and use that as a way of seeing how your generation is going to connect up and make the future happen, I really think people would have an entirely different concept of the future. And so my job is to try to spread the word, and you have helped immensely by all the work that you've done. So we've had a great time together, and this is only the beginning of a long relationship, because now you're headed out into the world to do all the great things that you're going to do, and we will keep in touch. Some of you I'm going to ask to come back and talk to the Capstone students next year, the career research students next year, about what you're doing, and just give them hopefully some of your enthusiasm will rub off on them, and they'll be inspired as well. So without saying anything else, I think I congratulate everybody, and I hope to see you on campus sometime tomorrow during your graduation. I think graduation is really early for you guys tomorrow, right? It starts at 8 o'clock. And so what I'll ask is, Tanner, if you want to, I'll get off here, and you can stream Miko's full video, and we'll say goodbye to everybody. Have a wonderful graduation ceremony.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Good job, everyone.
Thank you for everything.
Bye. Good job.
Thanks so much.
If anyone's just getting here on the live stream, you can scrub back through. The video is saved as a DVR, so you can in the live stream you can just go to the tracking thing and go back. And then
I think YouTube will also post it.
Yeah, it'll also be on the YouTube channel afterwards. So I'm going to set up the video, and then you should be all set.
Thank you, Tanner.
Thank you, Tanner.
Great job. Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Everyone.
Stay safe.
The recording has stopped.
tell me the guidelines on how you protect yourself from getting COVID-19. I've always followed the CDC recommendations such as wearing masks, washing my hands regularly, and maintaining social distance. Coronavirus is particularly dangerous for elderly people, so we need to wear masks, social distance, and stay home. Looking back to January 2020, some people wore masks, while others didn't. At the onset, I didn't think anything of COVID-19, and I really didn't start wearing masks until April 2020, when the government mandated everyone to start wearing masks and stay home. I didn't realize COVID-19 was that serious, but I started wearing masks, which was a new experience for me. Since it is very contagious, we had to wear masks to minimize the spread. Of course, I would wear a mask and maintain a 6-foot social distance from others, and I had to use common sense, not make any trips outside, unless we're grocery shopping or visiting friends who had already tested negative for COVID. I followed the guidelines from the Center for Disease Control and the World Health Organization, such as wearing masks, social distancing, and washing my hands. Unless I had to go out for an essential trip, I would stay home. Even if I have to go out, I'll wear a mask. Last year, I didn't expect we would have a global pandemic. Once the government officially announced coronavirus, they required everyone to start wearing masks to reduce the spread. I was still skeptical of it until I noticed other people starting to wear masks. I saw that the various news outlets were really emphasizing the importance of wearing masks. Whenever I arrived home after being out, I would wash my hands thoroughly for 30 seconds. I would also wear 2 masks, maintain social distancing from others to protect myself. I'd even take a shower after arriving home. To enforce social distancing, many stores actually had a limit on how many people could be in the store at the same time. I would go into the store quickly just to get what I needed and then leave. Anytime I go out, I'll wear a mask, of course, and I'll wash my hands thoroughly, or sanitize my hands frequently. That's related to going out somewhere. As far as socializing, there's a select group of people that I will hang out with. In my experience, when the outbreak started initially, I would stay home and really not go out much. I'd only go out for food shopping, and that's about it. Describe your experience about COVID-19 in general. When COVID started, I would read the CDC recommendations, which initially said that masks were not required, so I was confused. My dad said we should follow the China Department of Health guidelines instead. They actually mandated mask wearing. So then I was really confused by what was recommended here in the US as opposed to in China. But now the CDC recommends that we do wear masks. That was a strange time and a different experience for me. Before the COVID pandemic, we were free to go out and socialize at our own will. But after COVID, we were restricted. I had to stay home and couldn't go out. I felt scared about what would happen if I got COVID. I was concerned for myself and other people. I was concerned for elderly individuals and their health. And I made sure to be responsible and protect myself. Whenever I needed to go out, I would wear a mask and maintain social distance from other people. I maintained visual awareness of my surroundings to maintain that distance from others. While shopping, I made sure not to touch my face with my hands, which might be contaminated. After coming back home, I'd always wash my hands thoroughly before eating anything. Going to the store was a different experience. I noticed signs posted saying that if you didn't have a mask on, you were not allowed to enter the store. That was a new experience. There were also limitations on how many people could be in the store at one time. If it was at full capacity, you'd have to wait outside until people exited and a security guard allowed you in. That was new. Before COVID, you could enter any store easily at your will without any limitations or rules. After COVID, communication was also challenging since everyone was wearing masks. I'd resort to writing back and forth on paper or texting on the phone or gesturing. Traveling and being in the airport was challenging as well. Before traveling, I had to fill out a form and set up an appointment upon arrival to my home country, informing them of my duration of stay. That was a complicated process, and they mandated a negative COVID test before embarking. Overall, it was a new experience. At the time, the government mandated wearing masks, so I would wear one all the time, no matter what, just to be safe. When I got back home to the apartment, of course, I would take my mask off. Anytime I went out to the store, or really for whatever reason, I would wear my mask just to be safe. I'd wear a mask anytime I went out, and I tried to get in the habit of it. Sometimes I'd even wear 2 masks if I was in a highly trafficked area, such as a busy city. I felt much safer wearing a mask, as was suggested. Tell me your experience, how you face the challenges interacting with deaf and hard of hearing individuals while you and they have a mask on. I struggle communicating with others while wearing masks, and I don't mind asking them to speak louder or slower. It's better to stand closer together when wearing masks to understand better. Once masks were mandated, of course it was a challenge to communicate clearly with other deaf and hard of hearing people who were also wearing masks. It was difficult to identify the emotions of the person, such as if they were happy or sad, because the mask covered up some of their expressions. But after a while, seeing the same person consistently became easier. In the beginning, I had to clarify with them often, but it became less frequent over time. I didn't want to misunderstand them because the masks made it difficult to see their expressions. Eventually, there were less misunderstandings. I wasn't able to catch their expressions, and there were misunderstandings. I tried to overcome that by focusing on their hands only. Before COVID, it was much easier to communicate clearly because I could see their facial expressions and what they were signing. But when wearing masks, it was a challenge to catch the expressions of those I was talking with. When speaking with a deaf or hard of hearing person, it really depends. If they use full ASL, it's easier to understand. If the person depends on lip reading to communicate, it's more of a challenge, and you really have to focus more on the facial expressions. It depends on the person and their communication preferences. Some people sign without mouthing the words, while others depend heavily on mouthing. But so far it seems fine. In the beginning, it was really awkward. I was used to talking freely without the masks, and it took a while to get used to wearing them all the time. Eventually, I did acclimate to wearing them. While wearing masks, you do miss out on the facial expression and grammar. For example, scrunching your nose means yeah or true. I can rely on meaning conveyed in the eyebrows, but a lot is missed when the mask covering the mouth. For example, forming an O shape means, oh, I understand. So you really need to see the full expression to capture everything. If I know the person well, I may be able to understand their subtle expressions more easily. But with the mask on, it's harder because it's almost a ghostly appearance with no expression. Sometimes people are willing to pull their masks down, and it's much easier to understand them. But expressions are an essential part of deaf culture. It depends. If it's a friend or someone I know well, I'm able to catch their facial expressions and signs easily. If I'm talking with someone I recently met or a stranger, it's more difficult to communicate because the masks are a barrier. Conversing in ASL is not just signs on the hands. It involves facial expressions, and that's part of the grammar. In my experience, when people have masks on, I'm not able to see their lip movements as people speak while they sign. I'm not able to see a person's emotions that are expressed when they're signing. It's really tough. For me, it's difficult to understand what they're saying because I'm not able to read their facial expressions, and I can't rely heavily on looking at a person's entire face while talking with them. As a result, it's hard to tell what their emotions are. For me, I don't consider masks to be a barrier. I depend on touch to understand emotions and how a person is feeling. We use what is called protactile. This is a hand movement such as scratching on the shoulders, laughter. Since we use protactile, that is one advantage we have. I'm still able to communicate effectively with deaf and hard of hearing people. But of course, they need to know how to use protactile to communicate with me. If they're unaware, then that is a communication barrier. Wearing masks doesn't bother me since I don't depend heavily on facial expressions. It's more challenging now. Before the mask mandate, I would rely on facial expressions and gestures. With masks on, it's harder to communicate, especially if the person doesn't use gestures, such as head nodding or raising the eyebrows. With a blink expression, it's challenging to understand. Tell me your experiences, how you face the challenges interacting with hearing people while you both have masks on. Most people don't know how to communicate with a deaf person. For example, if someone comes up to me asking for directions, I'll point to my ear to indicate that I can't hear them, but they'll still try talking to me with a mask on. Again, I have to indicate that I'm deaf and I don't understand. With a mask on, it muffles your voice. That's an improvement that needs to be made. For example, it's easier to hear someone's voice when they speak through an N95 mask. The mask allows more space and is less constricting to the face. Growing up in Indonesia, most people I conversed with were hearing. I became accustomed to lip reading and using my voice while communicating. I use my voice, the person would respond verbally as well. With the masks now, they're a barrier. So I decided to avoid speaking and they'd be forced to figure out how to speak non-verbally with me, such as texting or writing back and forth. There's even an app that transcribes voice to text in real time. If I'm out shopping or in a public space, I'll use my phone as a means of communications with hearing people, such as texting and notes. It's impossible to read lips with the mask on, since you can't see through them. If the person is hard of hearing and doesn't know how to sign, I have to figure out what to do. It's easier to talk with someone who is deaf because we can both communicate through sign language. It's challenging to talk to a hard of hearing person sometimes because they aren't fluent in ASL always, and I'll have to figure out other ways of communicating, such as fingerspelling. Depends on the person. If they're hearing and aren't comfortable with gesturing or using reference points, it's easier to communicate. If they depend heavily on verbal communication, of course, that's more of a challenge. At that point, I'll tell them to write back and forth with me. If they don't understand what I mean by writing, I'll try gesturing. If they're not able to respond with signs or gestures, we'll write back and forth. Or I might ask someone else who's around and knows signs to respond. But most of the time we communicate by writing or reference pointing. Wow, great question. That was a challenging experience to overcome communicating with hearing people while wearing masks. I'd always been accustomed to writing back and forth with people before masks, but now it's even more frustrating with masks on. Whenever I meet a hearing person whose mouth is covered and they're speaking to me, I try telling them I can't understand and I'll ask them to pull their mask down. But often they don't understand at first and I have to communicate with them that I'm deaf, and it's very frustrating, and I try to explain it to them so they understand. Some people do use clear see-through masks. One time I actually met an interpreter wearing a clear mask, and it was so awesome. It's much easier to see their facial expressions. I really wish all jobs, such as hospitals, would require people to wear clear masks. Sometimes when the mouth is covered, I feel frustrated because I can't understand. I wish people would know what I mean when I tell them that I'm deaf, and I ask them to pull their mask down. I just wish they'd understand that I can't hear them and I can't see their mouth with the mask on. But it's okay. I know that hearing people are still learning how to communicate with deaf people, and I just hope that in the future it would improve. If there happens to be another pandemic, I hope that the situation would be much better as far as communicating while wearing masks than it is today. When it's noisy, It's so hard to understand what someone's saying and communicate clearly. I use what's called telecoil, a hearing aid connected to my phone, and when I'm talking to someone hearing, that helps to reduce the exterior noisy sounds. Also, if I give the hearing person a microphone, they can clip that onto their shirt collar, which helps me to hear more clearly. Tell me your experience, how you understand ASL and facial expression during social distancing. This has definitely impacted the deafblind community because we communicate through touch. How do we receive information if we're not able to depend on touch? Also, computers are not always accessible to us. Zoom is a visual platform. Not all deafblind individuals can use Zoom. It is incredibly limiting, so we had to be creative in order to circumvent that. On the onset of COVID, we weren't sure what to do. As the pandemic continued, we had to find ways to stay connected with each other. If a deafblind individual isn't able to use Zoom, someone has to transcribe onto Google Docs so that way it is accessible. That's via written communication during the Zoom meeting. So that is one way to do it. It's not always easy. Of course, there are challenges that do come with it, but for now it works. As I said, I depend heavily on touch for communication accessibility. Of course, it's important to have that mutual agreement. We both will wash hands and wear masks so that way we're safe while communicating with each other via touch and protactile. So far, it's been fine. What are some challenges you've encountered lacking communication during COVID-19? From what I've noticed in my personal experience and the deafblind community, social distancing has created a challenge. Of course, people avoid close social contact because of CDC mandates. They'll often say, we must follow the CDC. But the deafblind community now has to explain that we depend on touch to communicate. That requires a lot of re-educating. Those the deafblind community socializes with, we don't get out that much. We're often stuck at home because we don't have our own transportation, and we're not out socializing often. Sometimes I think people don't realize that. Also, social distancing has impacted our accessibility. For example, the provision of service support providers, SSPs, has been significantly reduced. SSPs will often avoid working due to medical and various other reasons. The number of available staff has reduced, resulting in a lack of accessibility and resources for the deafblind community. But now it seems that things are slowly going back to normal, especially as people are getting vaccinated. Which, speaking of vaccinations, that is another accessibility issue that we're facing. Vaccination appointments are booked online. And it's not always easy for deafblind individuals to schedule these appointments because the online system is difficult to navigate. It's really not designed to be deafblind friendly. And as a result, we have to depend on someone else to book these appointments for us. That is another barrier I have noticed. What tips or guides can you share to the hearing community about accessible communication during the pandemic? I honestly never thought this would happen. We'd all be wearing masks and this would be our new normal. It's been an interesting experience. But overall, it has benefited us as we've had to learn how to communicate with hearing people. That's helped to improve our interactions, and they've noticed that we need more accessibility. That provides a better opportunity to share resources between hearing deaf communities. Ultimately, that would benefit us in the future as the world improves with the mask situation. I would suggest for hearing people to be more open-minded and patient with us. If you're hearing and you approach someone who's deaf, don't leave in a hurry. Just be patient with them, and be open trying to communicate. Don't say, oh, sorry, ask someone else. That shows a lack of motivation to even try. Don't be scared. It's better to be more open-minded. There's even some signs that look like mime, so it's not that difficult to understand. For example, the sign for food almost looks like you're putting something in your mouth. It's pretty easy to understand. Just use your eyebrows, raise them for yes, lower them for no. It's simple. And if you think ASL is too difficult to learn, just think about communicating using gestures, or you can even write back and forth on paper or type on your cell phone as a way to communicate. Automated speech to text is an available function as well. I saw someone use that once, which is really cool. There's an app that automatically transcribes your speech into text so that deaf and hearing people can communicate more efficiently. It's important to keep an open mind to communicate. If you can't speak, don't get frustrated easily. There's still other ways to communicate. When the news outlets initially announced the COVID pandemic, a lot of the information was not accessible to deaf people, so they missed out on information. Those who have language deprivation couldn't read the captions on the TV and didn't understand without an interpreter. In my country, Nepal, English is not the primary language. I realized that sharing information with the deaf community was so important. Trusted individuals in the deaf community who could read and understand that information would share it with others to make sure there were no misunderstandings or false information being spread. Usually those from deaf agencies or interpreters would be the ones to share that information with the deaf community. For example, the COVID briefings that were done at the United States White House were shown in Nepal. Nepalese interpreters who knew English would interpret that information to the deaf community. It is important to have that accessibility. I would read news about COVID and share that to people in Nepal so they would be aware. Sharing news information within the deaf community was a necessity, both interpreted and in sign language. I do have some tips for the hearing community. Try to use gestures and facial expressions when talking with someone who's deaf. This will help us to understand you better while we're having a conversation. When you're trying to think of solutions, I would suggest including the deaf-blind community, especially asking for their feedback. For example, as I already mentioned about the online vaccination booking process, it's not easy to navigate. If a deaf-blind person is involved in that development, you can ensure that the system is designed to be more accessible for all people and not just a select group of people.